Patch Adams.
Thank you. So many clowns. Maybe we should just go out and clown in Mexico City. Great. Buenas noches. I must use the few words of Spanish that I know, so I can say something. Thank you for coming. I see a lot of new faces from this afternoon. Before I start, I tell all my audiences that I answer all my mail. I've never used a computer. I don't know how to use a computer. Never had a cell phone. But I can tell you that in order to find my address, you have to go to our website. I'm sorry, patchadams.org. I don't know how to get to our website, so I've never been there. But I know my address is there on a post office box. I write 400 to 600 letters by hand every month. I've done it for all my adult life. I'm caught up. So if you write me and you have a nice, clear return address, I answer your letter. If you like to wrestle with ideas, or if you have big dreams for a better world, or you want to argue, I'm there for you if you need a friend. Tonight's talk is called The Joy of Caring. It's one of the talks I've given for my entire lecturing life, which is almost 30 years. When I started to go lecturing, I wondered, what did I have to offer? And our profession, the healing arts, is a profession that people expect to burn out in. Burnout is an epidemic problem in the medical profession. I even heard today that a lot of the pediatric residents were depressed. And so this lecture was created as a burnout prevention lecture because I know it is impossible for me to burn out. I will die, but I will not burn out. And I think anyone can prevent burning out if they at least hear what I say and not necessarily follow it, but find their own journey to celebrating life and not burning out. How I will shape the evening is I will describe two kinds of work that I do, the medical work and the clowning work, to show that I feel I have the right to speak about caring, since my whole life is about caring. And then I will be a pep talk for care and say what it is about care that makes me so happy. And then I will show some films about care and say a few more things and then have questions. So relax and enjoy yourself. Right? You're relaxed? Some of you had dinner? Great. So, I'm going to describe our medical work. If you were here this afternoon, you will hear some repeated information, but it's a good idea, and sometimes it's good to hear ideas twice. My life in medicine has been unique to the United States in that in 40 years of medicine, I never made any money. My entire life in medicine, I have been free. It was a political act to show that care, loving care, giving, is another way to think of yourself as being rich. that it is not just having money that makes you rich, that having meaning can make you rich. I went to medical school as a political activist. I wanted to do my part to change our global society. I think we're in big trouble. And so I entered medical school with the idea to study healthcare delivery, with a lot of reading and a lot of interviewing, with the idea to create a hospital that answers every problem of the way healthcare is delivered, not as the answer, but as simply an example that answers are possible. We are doing ours. What is your fantasy? All over the world, I have been and lectured in 70 countries' medical schools, and many of those countries, many of their medical schools, and correspond with medical people in 120 countries, and nowhere do people like their hospital. Nowhere do people love and feel that they are practicing medicine in a vibrant, vital, sweet community that they hate going home to because they love the practice of medicine. And so when I graduated in 1971, I started the Gesundheit Hospital, and no one gave us a hospital, and we didn't have any money. So we used what we had, 20 adults, 3 of us medical doctors, and our children moved into a large 6-bedroom house and said we were a hospital. We were open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for all manner of medical problems from birth to death. We ran it for 12 years. We had 500 to 1,000 people in our home each month, with 5 to 50 overnight guests a night. So I'm sure you can picture 6 bedrooms with 20 adults and their children already living there, and 5 to 50 overnight guests a night. If you realize that many of those guests are needy and lonely and lonely and lonely and needy, anxious, troubled, you can imagine the intensity of this living environment. There was never any place to be by yourself. It was always on top of each other. We had 15,000 people in our home in this period. 3,000 had profound mental health histories, and we chose at our beginning to never give any psychiatric medicine for anything because we wanted to explore non-pharmaceutical mental health care. And so our house was almost always full of, I would say, extreme craziness. We had one rule, and that was no physical violence. You could act any way you wanted to. You could take off your clothes and scream loud, dirty words, and we would fit it into theater. It was a very fascinating experiment. Our idea was to make it all free, and it wasn't just free for poor people. We wanted to eliminate the idea of debt in the medical interaction. We never wanted anyone to think they owed money. We wanted them to be excited they belong to community, and their community takes care of them. We also had nothing to do with medical insurance because they have a tremendous control over the way health care is delivered in the United States. It's also a very expensive system, and I never heard anyone say anything nice about it. The thing that has probably been the most difficult to raise money is that we're the only medical group in the United States to refuse to carry malpractice insurance. In the United States, you are required to carry malpractice insurance. Some doctors pay over $100,000 a year in malpractice insurance. And we said we need the right to make a mistake. And so we We've never been sued. We made millions of mistakes. One of the biggest concerns all over the world is not having enough time with patients, both from the staff's point of view and from the patient and their family's point of view. And so as a family doctor, my first interview with a patient is 4 hours long. Really intense 4 hours. I ask every question sensitive to life. I want to know you better at the end of those 4 hours than anybody knows you. I don't shy from asking the most personal questions. And if I see anything strange, I ask more. I also insisted that I visited the home of all of my patients. I visited their homes. I invited myself to dinner. I snooped around the house. I opened every drawer, went in every closet. I was like Sherlock Holmes. Because you asked me to be your doctor, I wanted to, when I reflected on what it is you're asking, I wanted to know you. I wanted to have some idea. I wanted to have us love each other, to have a love for each other, that in that kind of context, great medicine can happen, especially at a deathbed or intractable pain or chronic unsolved medical problems. We also integrated all of the healing arts, the only hospital in the U.S. to do that. So we were, even though it was against the law when we started, we have been for 40 years involved in acupuncture and homeopathy and naturopathy and chiropractic and many, many other things. We also taught social change. We realized we come from a country that doesn't have much political, economic, or social intelligence. And I think that's obvious to anyone who takes a close look at us. And so we were a constant educational environment for understanding human community. And no one gave us a donation in those 12 years, not one little grubby donation. It was a very bad record. In fact, I had 1,400 foundation rejections, another very bad record. And so not only did our staff make no money, they had to work an outside job to pay to practice medicine. This is what I've done for 40 years. I pay to be a doctor. And I say that without any sense of sacrifice or long and hard journey or difficult task. That is a bunch of hooey. The unencumbered practice of care is an ecstatic experience worth paying to do. And we pretty much did it all the time. There were no breaks from it. It was our home. The patients were in our home. Get to work. An interesting thing is, our first 9 years, nobody left, even though it was incredibly intense, dangerous. My closest friend in medical school was murdered by one of our patients. Nobody left. And I think, I mentioned it this afternoon, that I think the main reason is that we were the first silly hospital in history. We made everything funny. It was also really tender and experimental, and so there was always theater going on, always farming. We were farmers from the very beginning. And just very complicated exploration, and all of this made for an experiment that people wanted to stay in. When we finished after 12 years to focus our attention to raise money to build our fantasy hospital, we realized that we couldn't just raise money, that we had to do something that was for our soul. And so that's when we started our mission trips. This was in 1985, and we're a very poor organization, so we said, let's work for peace. We can at least go love our enemy. And at that time, very clearly with Ronald Reagan, the enemy was Soviet Union. And so we made our first clown trip to Russia in November, and we've done it every November. I invite you to it. It's a hell of a lot of fun. It's 2 weeks of clowning 10 to 16 hours a day in hospitals, orphanages, prisons, nursing homes, restaurants, subways, hotels. We make everywhere dangerous. We've taken ages 3 to 88. We don't require any training. You can be the dullest Mexican in the country and we would take you. Because in a clown costume, you immediately become a character. So even if you're going, oh my God, I'm going to fail, oh my God, I'm going to fail, that's a clown character. So somebody watching you goes, wow, you're really good. And so I invite you all to do it. It was really there that I found a very different life as a clown. It was there that I discovered that there were hospitals that didn't have any pain medicine, and that I could walk into a room with just horrible, horrible screams and pain, and that 80+% of the time the clowning would stop the pain. It made me take a lot keener interest in going to the worst of possible human suffering to see just what can happen with love and fun and humor. This led 20 years ago to us creating orphanages in Moscow and St. Petersburg because we felt uncomfortable with the way children are cared for. There are horrible orphanages there. And then we said, well, let's take clowns into war, because that certainly seemed like a place with a lot of suffering. And 3 times we've gone right into the thick of war. And then we just went crazy. We said, let's go to disasters and refugee camps. We've taken about 150 trips. And after the movie, as my speaking fees increased, everything I make is donated to our project. We started to build clinics and schools in poor countries. And we have a lifetime project in the Peruvian Amazon to stop child sexual slavery, that we are working to create medical schools in Africa. And really, I'm saying these things simply to give you the impression that my whole life has been about care, that I'm not a person that really takes breaks. I work and I love to care for other people. What is care? For me, care is an action verb. It means to project both the action and countenance of compassion, empathy, and generosity over time without regard for a reward. You do it for its pleasure. Viktor Frankl, a Jewish psychotherapist who survived 3 years in the Nazi concentration camps, said, "We who live in the camps remember the people who walk through the huts, comforting others, giving away their last crust of bread. Though they were few in number, they offered sufficient proof that everything can be taken away from a man but one thing, the last of the great human freedoms, the ability to choose one's own way." And probably everything I talk about is about choosing who you are, who you want to be, and then decide to be. So I think of care as a choice. I don't agree with advertisements for hotels or hospitals that say, "We care." We never cared. An individual decides in a given moment to care. For some people, it can be who they are. They're caring all the time. For another person, they might care for a particular kind of group of people. Some, like me, who had a great mother, were simply trying to be our mother. I never ever have thought of myself as being more caring than my mom. I saw a great example of care, and I wanted to be like that. So did my brother, who's older than I am, and through all of these years, we have worked together. He and his wife manage our building site where we're now building our hospital. Others that don't have this kind of inspiration through a parent might find it from a teacher. They might see a TV show. Since I've traveled all over the world and been in so many orphanages and so many situations, it's amazing. Sometimes somebody goes backpacking, they decide to go visit a country, they bump into a problem, and then they stay the rest of their life. That can also happen, or you can have a bad experience in your life and decide to care. You can feel moved by your religious background to care. In a way, I think whatever it is that stimulates you, the experience of care is going to be very similar. The thrill of giving your time and your love to another human being. It's at least in my experience, it's energizing beyond anything else that I know in life. Another quote I want to give before I give you my little list of things that make me tickled to care is from George Bernard Shaw, great Irish playwright, who said, "This is the true joy of life, being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one, the being thoroughly worn out before being thrown on a scrap heap, the being a force of nature, instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy." Why do I do it? What makes me so happy about it? I'm going to tell you 7 things. All lists are incomplete. And to tell you the truth, the first thing on the list is the foundational reason, probably for everything that I do. And that is that I love people. I can think of that in the abstract. I love all people. When I tell you that I answer all my mail, I do it for me. Tomorrow I will go home, I'll have a stack of mail that has arrived. I will read a letter twice and answer it. I've corresponded with some people for 20 years and never met them. I love it. Each person a unique creature. When I tell you I did 4-hour interviews with patients, I did it for me. What a sneaky trick it is to be a doctor. Well, I guess I'll just have to sit here and have you talk to me for 4 hours. Not to a voyeur, that's heaven, right? The opportunity. Here's a little trick about a doctor. If you project that you care and love the person, they will tell you everything on the first date. You can try and experiment to ask them questions, and they will tell you. People will tell you. And I love that. I love finding out a lot of deep things about people. Since I never had any religion, I never had any relationship to God, I feel that what people get from God, I get from friend. I could even safe to say that friend is God for me. That I could call my experience with friendship my own worship. That this is really I think the major force in my life, just pushing me to work all the time, is the thrill it is to help other people. I have this fantasy. You know, a magic wand, ding, world peace, ding, no more hunger. Those are nice magic wands, and if I had one, I would have peace and justice everywhere. But let's say you had to have a magic wand just for your own little selfish indulgence. This is one of my fantasies, and it shows you how much I love people. I would love to be caught between floors on an elevator for hours full of people that don't like each other. Oh, give it to me. 5 or 6 hours of human bliss. I mean, there you are. You're stuck. You can't go anywhere. There's height differential. There's smokers and non-smokers. Emerging claustrophobia. Oh, boy, and you're there. You know, you're there. Maybe you're not taking notes or anything, but maybe you are. Farting? What about farting? I mean, all of it's there for people. That you get to see these people that don't like each other, that are forced to be close, maybe even collaborate. Oh, boy. I hope you have dreams that big. Yes, I do love people. There's so many times in my life that I've spent exploring people whenever I'm by myself and I'm not with friends, I'm out there doing very strange laboratory experiments with people. I just never tire of it. A lot of them I learned after I'd had 3 mental hospitalizations when I was 18. I didn't want to live in a world of violence and injustice, but once I finished that and decided to be revolution, I had all this time to explore experiments in being a human being. And in doing them with so many people, I really fell in love with us, how we can be in comfort with each other. So that's a really big reason for my care. Number 2 on the list. Number 2, now I'm going to poll the audience. I did this afternoon. Raise your hand if you are profoundly concerned about the future of humanity. Raise it high so everybody can see. Notice the unanimity. If it's any help for you, that's every audience in 70 countries for 27 years. People are profoundly concerned about our future, but are they acting revolutionary? What profoundly means for me, since that's the important word in that statement, is that if we don't change from a global value system nested in money and power over to one nested in compassion and generosity, nothing I study, nothing I visit or see gives me any sense we will survive this century as a species. And the relationship to care is, you think, now what the hell is the answer? Peace on earth, what's the answer? No hunger, what's the answer? Justice for everybody? Women safe everywhere? Well, of course, it's to love everybody. You can't, one way you know you love somebody is you don't hit them. You don't smash them in the face. I love you, dear. Bang. And if you have food, you share the food. And if you see injustice, you speak up and you act. So when you care, you are the answer. When you're caring about others, when you are giving of yourself to other people, this is the answer. If you've heard of Joseph Campbell and his work with myth and heroes, There's an archetype of the hero, of that person, however small they are, to go and tackle the giant dragon. And this is what you are when you care. You dare to take yourself next to human suffering and to give of yourself. And that's heroic. So since this is a medical group, and I know you are caring people, I'm going to count to 3. And you're going to yell out, "I am a hero." Okay? 1, 2, 3. Not bad. Not bad. I'm a hero. I'm telling you, you're allowed to feel that. Your caring is the solution to the problems of the world, to care for people, to care for all people, to care for the nature. That is the answer. It's that simple on paper. So I want you to think again now, since you're in the healing arts, most of you, or a teacher or a social worker, or whatever you do, a parent, think of some moment this month where it was very clear your care mattered, where you may have thought it was nothing, but they thought it was something big. It could have simply been a polite gesture, sticking up for somebody, whatever it is. But I want you to think about that and feel its heroic nature. In peace and justice, it's not the sword that is heroic, it is the gesture of love. So I know you have that in your thought, and so we're going to count to 3 again and really let it out, and maybe even give it some shoulder action. Okay, yeah, that's right, yeah. 1, 2, 3. So it's hard to burn out if you're thinking I'm a hero, right? I'm a hero, oh God, this is horrible. It really, it sends an unhealthy message. If care doesn't invigorate you, what is going to invigorate you? So you want to strut, I am a hero, yes. I am a hero, all right. Yes, thank you. Would you stand up and do that hero's dance? Yeah. Yes, that's what we're talking about. You're out as a hero. And see, you know how it is, how you get someone enthusiastic about something. You're enthusiastic about it. So you go to another country, you try a particular dish that was incredibly delicious. You bring it back to share with somebody. If you are caring and you show your excitement and heroic life, other people might want to do it. A third reason I love to care is kind of related to this thing. What is the job of care? Job description. To love? That's my job. Gotta go to work and love. But if you think about it, that's your job. And when you care, whether you're a teacher, a social worker, a surgeon, nurse, whatever it is, your job as a parent is to love. That's your job description. Got to go love. Now, where in human society is there a mandate to be loving? And certainly the loudest in history has come from the religions. What is Christ's message? Get off your butt and love people. Okay, it's maybe not exactly that quote, but postmodern Christ. And Buddha, be compassionate. The highest calling of your God, if you have one, is to be loving. You know, it's free. You can have nothing and be great for your God. It actually is true of all the faiths, of all the spiritual paths. The cornerstone of them is to be loving, to be a loving person. And so, now this is really dangerous. When you are caring, if you're a Christian, hold your seat. You are Christ. If you study Christ, you know that's what he wants. He wants you to be him. He doesn't want you to worship him. Oh, nice guy over there. No, he wants you off your butt and out there serving love on the front line. And so now you're a caregiver and you are a hero and you are Christ and you're burnt out. I'm a hero. I'm Christ. It gets nervous, you know. It takes you a while to get comfortable. It's what he... Is there a Christian here that would disagree? Christ wants you to be him. And so does your mother. If she was nice and loving, she wants you to be her. You know, they don't want a big plaque on the wall, Jesus is a nice guy. He wants you to be the nice guy. And all you have to be the peak of your faith, is to be loving. Piece of cake. Whoa, so feel how hard it is to be burnt out. You love people. You are a hero to save the world, and you are the expression of your faith. Might as well stop there. Good night. But there's more. Whoa, there's more? Ooh. Yes. Number 4 on my list is an Eastern concept. It's called karma. Ooh. The West has problems with understanding karma. On the surface, it looks like banking, right? I drove you to the airport yesterday. You have to drive me to the airport today. That is not karma. Karma actually is what I call in English a kind of thing. It means if you're a good person, you're going to kind of get good back. And if you're a stinky person, you're going to kind of get stinky back. It doesn't mean if you're a great human being, you can't walk out and get run over by a car. That's not the karma that we're talking about. When my mother was dying, the choice was nursing home or with me. That's no choice. Everything I like about me, she made. And so I'm going to take care of her the last part of her life. She's going to come live with me. Both of my sons, who are 34 and 23, they work with me. Cheap. Now, it's hard in the United States these days to get your children to work with you, especially cheap. And it's karma. They love me, I love them. We like what we do. Karma is when we went to Cambodia, Angelina Jolie gave us $50,000 to start our work there. And it wasn't because I'm a really handsome devil. I tried that. That didn't work. And then, no. When the tsunami happened in Italy, an Italian family gave us $50,000 to go there right away. That was karma. They just trusted us. They knew we would do something that they liked. I chose very early in my life to own nothing, to have no property, no safety net. And it's karma that gives that feeling to me. I don't have to worry. If I didn't have a place to stay tonight, I would wager one of you would let me stay in your house. And I feel that. I don't go, well, yeah, that's a little arrogant. No, I actually know that if you're a loving person, you can find a place to stay. Karma is a beautiful experience. If you go through life being nice and wonderful, we were talking about this in the car, if you just go through your life and just everywhere you go you spread joy and kindness, you're going to get a huge amount of good stuff back. A huge amount. And it's not why you do it. That's what's so interesting about karma. You don't do something to get something back. It's just one of the beautiful things about it. Your relationship to yourself, if you're good to yourself, if you're not punishing yourself with a lot of language, I'm no good, I'm too short, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, that's karma to yourself. So you're going to feel lousy because you're setting up lousy karma. But if you're going around going, I'm beautiful, aren't I nice? Yes. That's going to affect your immune system. That's going to affect all of your life. It's going to affect your relationship with your partner. Because if you think I'm no good, how are you going to have a good relationship? You're always going to thinking there's something going on. So karma's a beautiful thing. You have no idea the richness that comes to you. All day long, I've been receiving karma from my hosts who have treated me so sweetly and kindly that it's a big and meaningful thing to me that people are kind. And yet it's never talked in the business part of the news as an asset. But I promise you, if you want to be rich, be loving, be kind, be playful. Do it everywhere, and it'll be scary how rich you are. Number 5 on my list, and this is a real thrilling part of life. I think as we understand neuroscience more and more, we'll understand that one of the greatest forces in life is living in the force of creativity. To care is a chance to be creative. In medical school, I wasn't really taught to be a doctor. I was taught to be a technician. It's hard to be a doctor in 7 minutes. You can do technical things, but actually knowing a human being and having them know you is very different. Know what I had no education in? No one told me that most families were dysfunctional. I'm a family doctor. I didn't get one lecture on healthy family. And yet almost every family that I sat there and spent 4 hours with, I went, whoa. Ooh, you call that family? You know, in those 4-hour interviews, I found less than 3% of the people I interviewed had self-esteem. So that meant that 3% of our adult population from my series has self-esteem. What does that mean to live a life without self-esteem? I found less than 5% had a day-to-day vitality for life. Yeah, life! Woo! Yeah, baby! Come on! In fact, I found a normal adult didn't like themselves, didn't like their marriage, and didn't like their job, and that wasn't why they were coming to the doctor. Now, what can a doctor do about those things? If you want to figure out, maybe we have 7 or 8 minute interviews so that we don't have to deal with the really complicated parts of people's lives. You know, the father beats the mother twice a month. Gets drunk, beats the mother. Very normal West Virginia. Never mentioned in medical school. What kind of creativity do you need as a caring person to stop domestic violence? Is there any domestic violence in Mexico? Lots, right? So, you know, it's not actually that creative to treat a strep throat. You do the throat culture, it comes back positive, you give an antibiotic. You know, you can almost do that as a vending machine. But when you can see the, you know, in the U.S., if an unhappy housewife goes to the doctor, she's going to get an antidepressant instead of something good for her. Because that antidepressant is never good for her. She needs an exploration into healthy relationships and to work together to try to have a healthy relationship. She's not mentally ill. She's showing that her marriage sucks. And this chance to be creative. Okay, there's an abundance of food. If we took all the food we threw away today that we didn't eat from the food we had, that might have saved some lives of Mexicans who will die today of hunger. How can we be creative enough to end hunger, to end all of the problems of the world? Since no country has ever been safe to women, what kind of creativity will it take to make a country safe to women? Whoa, what a thought. But it's going to take a lot of creativity, and we haven't had it yet. And that's a thrilling part of I think, caring, because the more you care, you wonder, your mother's getting Alzheimer's. Now, the easy thing, of course, if you have money, is to put her in a nursing home. But did that mother work for you all of her life and give you love? Do you want to find a way to have her come and live with you and not have it hurt your marriage? And these are some of the really creative directions of healthcare. How to care for people. We can't figure out in the richest nation of the world how to have health care for everybody. No matter how hard we look like we're working, we haven't figured out even basic health care needs for our population. Where we've figured out how to have a hospital operate at 10% of the cost. And that's creativity. Eliminate 90% of the cost by making it a communal eco-village model celebrating care. And again, I think creativity is one of the greatest psychoneuroimmunological highs you can have in your life. Whether it's creating how you are as a person, creating how you are as a cook, as an artist, as a physician. It's a beautiful thing to be in that creative process. And related to that, number 6 on my list is, whoa, it's a chance to be enthusiastic! Peace on earth! Crazy. crazy. You know, if I wasn't embarrassed for my singing, I would break out and dream the impossible dream, right the unrightable wrong, bear with unbearable sorrow, run where the brave dare not go. You know, some of the hardest stuff for me to do is to hold starvation in my arms. I've held maybe 2,000 children dying of starvation, and it is hell. I don't have any way to get rid of the memory of it. And I think we have enough food, and food is cheap. I think one ball player in the United States, one famous person who uses a ball, makes enough money over and above what they need for their $1 million mansion to create a foundation so that no child would ever die of hunger. One ball player. It's not interesting yet. The enthusiasm, if I just did these 10 things, that no woman would ever be abused again, well, I would do those 10 things. What is it? Is it really 10,000 things that we have to do? I don't know. They've never been safe, so we don't know yet what a safe society for women would be. But the enthusiasm to try to do it, if you feel that you're losing some of your energy, your enthusiasm for life, tackle something hard. The great sculptor, English sculptor Henry Moore, when he was in his 80s, was asked, as people in their 80s that are famous often are, what is the meaning of life, the purpose of life? And he said, the purpose of life is to have a task, something you devote your entire life to, every minute of the day for the rest of your life. And the most important thing is, it must be something you cannot possibly do. So creativity, enthusiasm, these are great medicines. If you can find your own way to make creativity in everything that you do and to bring enthusiasm to what you do, you will see yourself infect environments. And the seventh reason why care is good for me is for the actual truth that it is good for you. It's scientifically proven that to be loving and fun is good for you. But don't believe the research. Do your own research. Okay. I want you to do 2 months of research with me. Now, I don't have any electronic equipment, and I know you can do this on your own little iPhone or whatever you have, or you can write it down, which would be my style. I want you to keep a journal for 2 months. The first month, don't care about anything, okay? You wake up with your partner and you go, oh, no. Maybe if I have some coffee. You go into the bathroom, you look in the mirror. Oh, you again? Oh. And just all through your day, don't care. Butt in line, push people out of the way, don't care about anything, strictly scientifically. Write down, how did it do waking up that way? Just don't care and keep notes as to its effect on you, your not caring. Don't care at work. Just really get good at not caring universally so you can do a scientific study. That's the purpose. And write down how do you feel about it all? How was it for you not caring? And And then the next month, care like crazy, okay? You wake up with your partner and you call in sick and take the rest of the day off because you can't believe you're so lucky to have this person next to you. You walk into the bathroom, you look in the mirror, and all through the month you are opening the door. You have a problem getting in the building. You're holding the door so long. And just everywhere that you see a glimmer of possibility, you're caring. And write it down. How did I feel? How did I do? How's my relationship? How are my children? How am I with myself? I mean, you can look at the immune system. You can look at the studies. One of the most important books I think I've read in my last 10 years was by a professor at the University of Chicago, John Cacioppo, a book on loneliness. It is the research using MRIs, CAT scans, of what it actually is to be lonely. And I really recommend anyone in the healthcare profession to really look at the research of the hell that loneliness is. The research is overwhelming and it is crushing. We have to make friends. And, you know, if you start observing wherever you go, look for care. Look for something you just notice in a store, the way a parent and a child are stopping shopping and playing with a box that's on the floor. Or watching two old disabled people walking and taking turns helping the other one just get down the street. Keep an eye on where you see care. A person choosing to throw the trash in a trash can rather than on the ground. Little gestures. Notice how you feel when you see those things. And notice languages of care as you start having that be something you notice. Notice nursing stations. Notice teams in wherever you work, in your medical work. How are they working? Where is care influencing the team? It's good stuff, care. I want to show you some films. Is my film person back there? Hold up a thumb. I want to I'm going to show you a few scenes. Oh, great. The first scene is from Arequipa, Peru. It's in a park in Arequipa. We've done many trips to Peru. And as much as I love to clown in institutions, I love to clown out in public. Just go out, go to a park, cause trouble. And because I'm so interested in care, when I'm clowning, but I'm also looking for suffering. Suffering has faces. You can see and learn to read the faces of suffering. And so I'm clowning and I'm looking around to see what I can see. And in this day in Arequipa, I was clowning and I noticed a young woman in a wheelchair. Can we hold it for a second? Stop. Nah. Great. Thank you. I noticed a woman in a wheelchair whose face was on her knees. And I watched this for about 15, 20 minutes. And it was a beautiful sunny day. There was music in the park. There was every reason for her to be alert and enjoying. But she wasn't. Her face was on her knees. And so I was wondering, why was that? Maybe she was tired. Maybe she was sleeping. She partied last night. Unlikely. Maybe she was orthopedically frozen in this position. If you've been in chronic institutions of disabled people, I'm amazed at the shapes we can end up being in permanently. But I think it was that third reason that concerns me a lot in our society, and it has to do with our very narrow definition of what beauty is. What is beautiful? This foolish little definition of beauty has become a multi-billion dollar a year industry in cosmetics, in Botox injections and facelifts, the issues around anorexia and bulimia, all of the pain we have in a very narrow definition of beauty. Old people can't be beautiful in this definition. But there's a very narrow definition, and in this kind of situation, you have to ask yourself, what is it like to be hideously ugly? I'm not talking a pimple or a scar. I'm talking your face burned off. I'm talking profound acne, acne vulgaris. I'm talking birth defects, accidents. And I told you that when I'm with a patient, I ask them very sensitive questions. So when I've had a patient who was hideously ugly, I ask them, what is it like to be hideously ugly? It sounds like a horrible question. But the truth is, no one had ever asked them. It's the elephant in the room. Everybody knows it's an issue, but nobody ever wants to talk about it, ever. And so they were thrilled finally to talk with somebody about themselves being hideously ugly. And I heard the saddest stories I've ever heard. These saddest stories are the life they live, where everywhere they go in public, they are a nightmare. They actually see the nightmare. They look in somebody's eyes, and before that person has a chance to respond compassionately, their face shows their ugliness. They can stare at them. They can have a face of repugnance, and they live in great fear that some child will point and go, "Mommy, what's wrong with that person?" And there isn't anything wrong with that person. We have a narrow definition of beauty. You know, beauty is a much bigger word than what you look like in a photograph in a magazine. A much bigger word. And I think that was, her name is Kathy. My style in clowning is I never ask permission. I invade, you'll see pretty aggressively, their space. I'm never in a hurry. This was about a 45-minute exchange. And Kathy has cerebral palsy. It is not usual in cerebral palsy that you don't speak, but there are a certain number of children who don't, and she's one of the people with cerebral palsy who doesn't have the use of language. Okay, let's show it. Can we get the lights for detail? Turned on the lights. I want to give you an idea in case you decide to do this. Notice I'm paying absolute attention. Nothing else exists but Kathy. I am touching her. Throughout, I am caressing her. I have no concern if she ever smiles or laughs. It's not important to me at all. It is important that I engage. For example, here I'm doing a clown neurological exam. It might interest you that I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just not afraid to be up close and personal. Again, nothing exists but Kathy. I'm also saying, I love you, te quiero. Te quiero, amiga. Can we have some sound on this? Finally, after all that time, you see that she did smile after pulling the nose away. But it really doesn't matter. Another very difficult thing for people who are disabled, in this case especially neurologically, you will see Kathy drool, and drooling is socially unacceptable, and so you will see that she's embarrassed for drooling. She interrupts her fun. Here she's drooling here. She's very slow to respond, but she is embarrassed. And I, of course, don't care, so I say, don't worry about it, but still, even with her left hand, she tries to stop it. And I show her, drool on me. I love drool. I love drool. And I'm constantly telling her I love you and caressing her. So you actually see Kathy's a beautiful woman. She's just looking for somebody to pay attention to her. It's devastating to people who people don't pay attention to. Okay, I think that's enough for this one. Let's go to number 10. Bloop. But let me introduce it. Next, I'm going to show you this situation I had of relieving pain in a hospital that had no pain medicine was very strong for me. Don't start it yet. When I saw the power that what we were doing to relieve suffering, I started, especially in poor hospitals, to say when I went to the hospital, please give me the patients who are suffering the most. Please tell me who is hurting the most, that I want to go there to them. And this young boy, Sasha, happened to be this visit of that question. The situation of Sasha is that right before we entered the room, the mother was told after a third brain operation for a tumor that the son would die very soon. It's the worst experience in the world for a mother. There's nothing that is a close second. And this was her only child. I walked in the room. I saw her standing at the window. she was standing and being in a way that I've seen all over the world. That moment of facing the loss of your child and what that means. And she gestured that she did not want clowning. And of course we respected it. But she didn't say to not clown for her son. And so we went over there and clowned. And his story was he had come back from his third surgery. And like a lot of, I think, children, adults do this also, when their death is near, especially from something like cancer, they move away from society. And so it's not uncommon, as he did. He didn't eat, he didn't drink, he didn't take his medicine, and he didn't really interact with people. He had checked out. And maybe his mother let us play with him because she thought he wouldn't do anything. We stayed an hour and a half. The first 50 minutes, the mother did not join us. She did see him eat and drink and take his medicine. She also saw him play a game of football and a very strange game of baseball. And so she joined us for the last 40 minutes. And you're going to see just a little segment. I don't know if the interpreter can hear the sound on the screen. You'll see that basically it's really stupid things. It doesn't take a training. It just takes a doing. I find out that his birthday is in a few weeks. I would be surprised if he lives to his birthday, but I swim in and give him a kiss. And then I have a fish puppet. I put it on his hand. You will eventually see that he can't hold it up. He must rest it on his chest. And I tell him that his fish and my fish will gossip about a third friend. And you will see that he actually cracks a really funny joke. And somebody had given me a little fish on a keychain, and I'm lying. I tell him that it's a little cell phone. He can call me anywhere in the world, and I will be there for him. And then, so you'll see that it actually isn't something that takes any training to do. So let's try it. And somewhere during this, I'm going to ask you, keep it running, but turn off the sound.
Anywhere in the world, these special radio channels
Here's the mother. Keep it running, but turn down the sound. Great. The last scene I'm going to show you on this tape is from an orphanage. I think I mentioned that I've probably been in over 2,000 orphanages. They always break my heart. I can't believe that we do not take care of the children. I have been in orphanages that hell cannot be worse, and the Russians are some of the worst. And people have told me, Patch, what does it matter? You drive up to an orphanage once a year, and you spend 2 hours in the orphanage, and maybe you make them more sad after you leave than good that you were there. And I understand that, but I have to say that in Russia we go to the same orphanages. You're going to see me leaving an orphanage with a young girl who for many years, when we drive up on the bus, she is right there. By the way, this is my older son. That we drive up and she comes and grabs my hand, and we have 2 hours of enchantment together. And you will see us departing and see at least what it means to me. We can turn up the sound now. Ding, ding, ding. You don't have to be a good skipper as a clown. Great. Okay. Now I want to say a few more things about care. We can turn off the films. The word care is in crisis in the United States. Probably the word most associated with it is burden, the burden of care, the burden of our elderly, the burden of our poor, the burden of our mentally ill, the burden of our disabled, the burden of our environment, that anytime you have to spend any time caring for something, it's a burden. It's a duty. It's not an ecstatic, joyful thing. We're trying to change that. It's interesting in our language. Language is so unusual. You take the word give and take, they seem so different. But if you add care to them in English, you have a caregiver, a caretaker, and they're the same thing. Maybe there's an implication, and we certainly believe this, that care is bidirectional. That we think that care is an essential human need. In order to be fully human, you need to be caring. That whatever discomfort you may be feeling, make sure that there's a part of your life that clearly is caring. We think it's an essential human need, and that it is bidirectional. That everyone talks about how Mother Teresa helped the poor of Calcutta, but they don't talk about how the poor of Calcutta helped Mother Teresa. I am glad that people have thought I have been caring of them, but I'm real clear that they have been caring of me. That you can see, if you look in our society, people caring for their parents with Alzheimer's or caring for their children who are totally disabled, and there's no burden. It looks like they're having the best possible life imaginable. This is a possibility. It's interesting, we have a phrase in English, I couldn't care less. We also have a phrase, I could care less. So grammatically, we're confused. If you were an English student, you might wonder which is correct, I couldn't care less or I could care less. I'll tell you, it's I couldn't care less. What is interesting is that it's usually said from a position of strength. I couldn't care less. Meaning that of all the levels of care, they couldn't care less than they are caring, and they're feeling good about that. That's how dumb some of our population is. We need to care to be human. It is not a duty, it is a privilege. It is a chance to be the ultimate expression of your humanity. Okay, we have some time for questions or comments, arguments. I'm completely open. I have no privacy. So if you dare say it or ask it, I'm ready for you. I also see that there are more people tonight using the interpreter, and so if I had the ability to understand Spanish, all right, perfect. Isn't the interpreter doing a great job? They mean well. If you don't ask questions, I recite poetry. I know 4 hours of poetry by heart. The interpreter will not try to translate it. You saved us. English or Spanish?
Bueno, buenas noches. Good night. Spanish.
Okay.
¿Qué consejo nos podría dar para poder superar esos temores, esos miedos a no poder llevar a cabo una función tan grandiosa como la que usted hace?
Have you had this fear?
Yeah.
I'm curious how you recognized it.
No, I don't know.
But you're calling it fear.
Yeah.
You're a medical student. You know, I think it's very normal when you enter medicine. You're thinking, oh my God, I've got to, life and death is in my hands. I'm going into medicine. There's so much stuff to learn. What if I don't know the right thing and kill the patient? What if I don't ask the right question? Was I friendly enough? Was I too friendly? Was I professional? Was I unprofessional? But all of those things are going over around in your head as a medical student, and that's true everywhere. In my world, those are indications for you to invite thinking into your life. It's very helpful in medicine to do a lot of self-examination. Who am I? That the profession of medicine has a series of tests and internships to put you to a point to where you can hopefully feel that you know the right technical parts of medicine. Proper diagnosis, proper treatment. I'm not sure that's what you're talking about in this question. I think you are talking about that.
Más o menos.
Okay. One reason that I always worked with a group of doctors is I like a group of us to tackle a medical situation. I like having more than one voice because it is complicated. It's much more complicated when you're in school than it was when I was in school. And so I think one of the first things that's really important for a medical student or a resident, a physician to do is that if it isn't totally clear to you, reach out. Reach out to doctors and reach out to nurses. Nurses saved my life as an intern much more than doctors did. And I say that they saved my life much more than doctors did. So I think if it's a force that drives you to be diligent in your studies so that you do learn the information. And it's interesting, no matter how long you've been a doctor, they say you're practicing medicine. So maybe all your life you're in practice rather than, well, I've got it down. You're always in practice. That it's important to keep up with what is happening in medicine, that these forces, these fears, so if you stay caught up, if you are comfortable to call in other friends to help you, if you have passed all the examinations, the technical part of medicine should be pretty straightforward. The fears can go away. If you start caring for a patient, you may have fears more having to do with personality. And that's why I suggest doctors not to be hierarchical, not to feel separate, not to feel, I don't like the idea of professional distance. I think that's an excuse not to be intimate. But I was told to be not so emotionally involved with my patients. Why would I go into medicine if I didn't want to be emotionally involved? I mean, that's only my own point of view. But that one nice thing in pediatrics, these friends I've met today who are graduating, they had 3 years. They had medical school, and then they had 3 years to practice being comfortable. And if they go, oh, I'm still not comfortable, maybe they'll go into a specialty and have 3 or 4 more years of, oh boy, I get to work with other people. Phew. So at some point you dive in and say, I'm going to welcome, I'm ready to receive patients, and you're ready to use a phone and say, can you help me? That's why you get close to your classmates, you get close to the people in your residency, you make friends along the way so that you have, and that you don't feel it's a loss of your intelligence or your position to reach out. Because there are people I can remember in medical school, students that made big mistakes because they didn't want someone to think they didn't know something. You know, be the dumbest student in your class. That's what I was. You know, be a person who says, I'd like some help. and then you just dive in. You know, the fear early on is to help make you really set your course for good relationships, diligent study, keeping current with information, and then you, as a student, you'll feel very different. Sometimes as an intern, you already feel like you're a doctor. You know, that you're ready to be a doctor. But by the end of your residency, who is finishing their pediatric residency? Okay, leave your hands up, okay? And this is a time to be really honest. Who thinks by the end of this year, you're going to be ready to go out there and be a pediatrician? Keep your hand up. Don't look back there. That was, I think they were from another group. No, come on, wait just a second. Okay, you've disproved me here. Did anyone leave their hand up? Aren't you in charge of these residents? Is that right? Okay, then I want, here, let's give the mic. You say, what is it going to take between now and the time you finish to feel that? And you can be asking that question yourself. And the ones that didn't raise their hand, okay, these two here, they put their hands down quickly. Yeah. Tell this medical student what you're missing in your third year of residency.
Experience. Sí se oye.
¿Sí se oye? That's not a dirty word, is it? Okay. Does anyone want to say? Okay, forget those people. Maybe they're humble. I'll tell you, I only did 1 year after medical school. I'm a general practitioner because there were so many ethical compromises in working in an American hospital, I couldn't do it. I couldn't work around rude doctors. The amount of rudeness, 90% of the doctors were rude, arrogant pricks. And I couldn't work around them. You know, they were telling me to be a different person than I am. And then one day in my internship, I said, I know enough. You know, I'm never going to be a super subspecialist. I'm a family primary care doctor. And that I know enough. And I know enough to look up in a book if I'm scared or make a phone call. And that I was ready. I never look back on it. I'm not sorry. I am glad I quit the residency because I couldn't, you know, too many assholes. I know there are none here, but there are a lot in the United States. And so you have to come to grips, you know, in the same way when you're dating somebody, you have to come to grips. Am I ready to date? Are you looking at her? Are you dating? Okay, is he ready to date? Okay, you don't have to answer. But I mean, with everything, you wonder, am I ready to play Chopin? I've been practicing for 1 year. Am I ready? And whatever it is that you're wondering, am I ready? Am I ready? Everyone's going to have their own. What I don't recommend is that you don't have a big judge going, you're never enough, you're never enough, you know, have good judges. You know, have relaxed judges that care about you and that care about you being a good doctor. And, you know, I don't know you, but I trust that in my just seeing you here this evening, you're going to be a wonderful doctor. you're going to really care about your patients. And we make mistakes. You know, if every doctor was honest, we make mistakes every day. When you only have 8 minutes with a patient, you make a mistake every single time with a patient because you don't have time to ask all the right questions. You don't have time to comfort and to... So every day, all day long, you make mistakes as a doctor. You apologize, and you go to your books, and you try to learn. Well, you go to the internet now, probably, and work with a group. You know, I always work with other doctor friends and nurse friends, and just say, let's all talk and see what's happening. All you residents, put your hands down. Make them do another year. Okay. Because what is it? What is it about all of them put their hands down? There's something important here in what they're saying, and it's not about the training here at the hospital. There's something really uncomfortable to me in thinking that you are 6 months away from your completing your residency, and 8 months. Yeah, that extra 2 months will help. So you're 8 months away from your pediatric residency being over, and you're not sure you'll be ready. Can't one of you say, I'm going to be ready? Okay, next question.
Okay. Let me try to practice my English. Here.
Okay, yes,
Okay.
right.
First, I am thankful and with you, with your message, and with the organizers of this conference. It's very interesting for me. I'm a pediatrician. I'm actually working in the role of play as a therapeutic tool for patients. That's the field that I am interested in just now. And I'm very happy to be listening what are you saying to us today here. Really, I want to make you many questions, but I may maybe just think one or two. So you have traveled for many countries, for all the world. I have seen many places. And first of all, I want to know, have you ever found some place where people in hospitals, in medicine, used to play with children? The doctors used to play more than others? Or maybe it's similar, as I've said, that many times doctors don't have difficult to play with children, to have this ludic, this playing attitude with them. And the second question is, you have made a very political position about care, a philosophical one, and what do you think about the health care reform and what your work has to do with that? No? In the United States, I know that there's a discussion. Okay.
That was that opinion.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You know, it's interesting now in the United States, there's a degree you can get in college called Child Life Specialist. You actually can get a master's degree. That when I grew up, that was called a playmate. Child Life Specialist. And what I don't like about that, in the same way that I don't like that when a hospital has a clown group that comes in, maybe they think we don't have to be playful and funny. Maybe when they have a child life specialist, they think we don't have to play with the children. I haven't found a happy hospital in the world. I've looked, I've challenged. I keep thinking somebody is going to show me one. I will be very happy, but I haven't found one. I haven't found a place where people feel the doctors are having enough time with their patients. And you know, when you don't have enough time, it's like, let's say you're a single mother with 3 children, and you're working 2 jobs because you're not getting any help from the father. Basically, your mother job is cleaning the house, cleaning the clothes, cooking the foods, making sure they have breakfast, immunizations, and you don't really, the first thing that goes is play. That if you, it's not held in high regard. I would say even, there's a lot that would say it's unprofessional to play. Unprofessional to be funny as a doctor, unprofessional to hug your patients, to kiss your patients, to be vulnerable, to cry with your patients. So that ethic is out there all over the world, and there are people trying to defend that idea. It sounds like you're trying to break down that idea. So I don't know places where doctors are well known for playing on the floor and enjoying their life on the wards. And I don't know how many thousands of hospitals I've worked in, many, and I've not seen that happen. I have seen individual doctors and nurses take a break and enjoy what we're doing and look like they're natural in doing it. I mean, one of the reasons we have created our hospital is that we wanted a funny hospital. We wanted a loving hospital. We wanted a hospital where there was no power over. No one was a boss. And we've kept to those dreams a long time because we thought it was valuable to show one in action. And when we show one in action, they'll see that one of the reasons the doctors will work for practically no money is because of that climate, because of working in a playful environment, an environment where you have time with the patients and that sort of thing. And I don't know anywhere where that's become the nation's or a particular hospital's style. They have this thing called patient-centered care. It sounds good on paper. I don't know many places that have taken that idea very far. Sometimes they feel they've taken it very far if on pediatrics they wear colorful clothes. So there's a long way to go. And I've known medical students and residents who were kicked out of school for being unprofessional. And when I get their letters full of tears and they tell me what they did, they were just trying to be human. And so, what a weird thing that in our profession, which is a profession of humanism, of care, of being people with people at their most vulnerable moments, that somehow we're supposed to keep a distance from that. But there are a lot of things in this society that are weird to me, and so I'm going to guess they're also weird to you. Let's change them. Beep, beep. Up. Yes. Law.
In your career, I'm sure you have to, well, you break all the rules, all the normal rules. I would like to know what has been the biggest challenge that you have faced throughout your career.
The biggest challenge. You know, I don't actually have any personal challenges. Once I decided at 18 to make me, I've just been making me. I mean, the challenge I face, I mean, the challenges I face are the most horrible challenges. I come from the #1 terrorist nation. My country has murdered 1 million Iraqis. I feel I know what it must have been like to live in Germany in 1934. You know, when I look at the political structure of our nation, you know, the Homeland Security Patriot Act broke 6 of the 10 Bill of Rights. Americans don't even know what the Bill of Rights are. But I watch people on TV say things, I can't believe this is, you know, my nation. I have a passport. If I could, I'd burn it right here on the stage. There's no more meaning for countries. You know, the 20th century was the last century of countries. It's transnational corporations now. I mean, for me, the worst thing that ever happened in history is market capitalism. Market capitalism is destroying everything. And it has an ethic around it that allows it. And it owns the TV station, so it sells this idea to children. So I try to wonder, given the millions of things we could study, the huge numbers of things we could be doing with our life, how is it that anyone has time to sit down on the couch, how many days a week, to watch multimillionaires play with their balls? Sports. I mean, if you don't think you've been tricked, you have been tricked when you sit down and watch multimillionaires play with their balls and think you're engaged in some way. I'm sorry. You know, we are destroying our environment at a level that is embarrassing. We're still debating in the United States about global warming because we can have a snowstorm. You know, we are working a lot trying to stop child sexual slavery. 20 to 50 million men a day have sex with a child in sexual slavery. 20 to 50 million every day. So when you ask me about challenges, those are challenges to me. I don't have any challenges. You know, I don't think I've had a challenge in my adult life. I've had a lot of opportunities, but for the young people in this audience, nothing I read says you have any hope to reach my age. And so what does one do? I'm a nonviolent person. I will not defend my family, so I have nothing but ideas and example as a way of addressing that. I can't rise up. I recently saw this Soderbergh movie, Steven Soderbergh's film on Che Guevara, almost 5 hours film. And, you know, Che had a lot of good ideas. He made it very clear that revolution doesn't stop when the revolution wins. You're always revolutionary, but no matter how I look at it, I'm not going to hurt another person. I don't see any examples in history where hurting another person got us closer. And so the giant dilemma I have is, what can we do? What can people who are nonviolent do? You know, if you read, you know, I have a large library on Mexican history because I come here a lot. I know that my country subsidized corn farmers in the United States so they could sell their corn cheaper here in Mexico than the Mexican peasant can sell their corn, and so we can screw them and call it NAFTA and think we're doing something good for somebody. You know, what is happening in Egypt? You know, I'm wondering, is that going to happen all over the world? Why doesn't it happen in my country? Why isn't the people everywhere saying we're not going to take this crap anymore of a few people being in charge of things and them getting richer and richer and richer? You know, I'm on the dessert phase of life. I'm 65, and because I'm 65, I have Medicare. So for the first time in my life, I have health insurance. All right. So everything else, the rest of my life is dessert. But I sit here wondering, where are our grandchildren? What are they going to grow up in? You know, and if there are any people, when my children have grandchildren, they will kill for water. We're already killing for water. And so my challenge is, and I'm not sitting here to make you go home and kill yourself, okay? I'm saying, if you switch to care, you will never be silent. When you hear a racist comment, you will speak up. When you hear a sexist comment, you will speak up. The difficulties that your country is going through, you're going to get involved. You know, it's not about having another great vacation. Making yourself secure for you and your family in a gated community. So the challenge is, how can we make love our value? How can we make a world safe enough for women? Nicest part of life, women, and we've never been good to them. And women didn't even get the right until 1890. How stupid were we men? In all of history, it took till 1890 in the world to give women the right to vote as citizens? What were they before that? They weren't citizens. You have a hand up? No. Okay. Okay, yes.
Bueno,
Again, don't cut your wrists. It's important to say those things. Get active. Yes, ma'am.
Bueno, viendo el video de la niña rusa, la del orfanatorio.
Uh-oh. They're not working for me. No spucho? Yes, I know. Okay, now she's ready.
Okay. Bueno, viendo el video de la niña rusa, la del orfanatorio.
Oh,
No.
she can't hear you. Is there something wrong? It sounds like the microphone is working.
Try my.
Okay, she will try her English. It's sounding good already.
Watching the video of the.
Yes.
Okay, en español. Bueno. Ok. Viendo el video de la niña rusa del orfanatorio, no podía evitar pensar que bajo los conceptos, digamos, de nuestra sociedad occidental postmoderna, de lo que es la costo-eficacia en medicina, ciertamente tomar un avión hasta el otro lado del mundo para que una niña se ría, brinque y dé vueltas, bajo esa como visión tan fría que tenemos, es algo totalmente absurdo. Y sin embargo, al uno estarlo viendo, uno no puede no darse cuenta del inmenso valor que algo así tiene. Y uno piensa realmente que dónde encaja la compasión en un mundo industrializado que únicamente da valor a aquello, digamos, económicamente, o que se traduce en dinero, o que se traduce en poder. Y mi pregunta es, ¿tú crees que la humanidad realmente está preparada para dar ese salto hacia el amor, hacia no preocuparse únicamente cada uno por sí mismo y ver a los otros como competidores, sino dar ese salto? ¿Puede eso suceder en algún futuro cercano?
Well, shit, yeah, I do. I mean, why would I be here? You know, I don't think it's too late. And because I don't think it's too late, I am going to work round the clock. You know, I could go all night with you. I go all night at universities with students. Yes, we have to wake up. Some of the reason I answer her question larger than I had to was just to shake people. You know, that I take advantage of your love for me to tell you that market capitalism is the worst thing that ever happened in history. And I'm happy and ready to argue with anybody about that. I don't think it's too late. I think this young generation may be the last one to have a full life where they can fight it. And so everyone hears, right, that I'm asking you to join a revolution for loving. Everyone hears that, right, or I'm not a good communicator. That, you know, men never make a sexist comment again. Never misuse a woman again. You know, so start, make clubs, get creative, get enthusiastic, feel like Jesus, feel like a hero, and go and do it. Yes, it's possible. Because one thing that's true in my experience of traveling all over the world, I'm not sure there's anyone who's hugged more people on this planet than I have. And I'll tell you, people are beautiful. All over the world, in every country, people are beautiful. That I hate this idea that human nature is greed. Human nature is this meanness and this violence and this horrible things that are in the world. This is not human nature. It is human nature to be influenced. And if you offer people television and very bad educational systems, you will educate thinking out of their life. I am sad to report to you, I think less than 10% of adults in the United States ever think. Not one day in a year do I think, by what I mean by thinking, they are not doing it. That we have had such a powerful manipulation with television, with our educational system, to have a person actually think that watching TV 6 hours a day is not death. To be excited for some shallow, stupid television family is somehow interesting to people. That we've been able to do that. And I keep at this because I do think love can be an influence. I think you're showing up to me, bringing me here, the 3 different events that I've had. I see attention, it's 10:10 at night, and still you're sitting here and listening to strong things. So I experience it. I experience that you can affect change. You know, all this letter writing that I've done, I have, you know, I know I have because I have a stack of 50,000 letters from nursing, doctor students, or social workers or teachers who say, because of your work, I'm doing this. So if you just decide from this day forward I'm going to be nice, I'm going to radiate disgusting niceness. I'm going to be scary, I'm so nice. I'm just going to be loving everywhere and be kind everywhere. I promise you something can happen. And the nice thing is you can find it happen the first day. You don't have to wait a long time. If you're friendly out in the world, they will be friendly back to you. Everywhere I've gone, and I don't like casually go somewhere, I get out there and attack the population. And they're beautiful people. And we'd have to turn off our TVs and start saying, who am I? Who am I, and what can I do to make a loving world? And then you notice that your radiance affects people. So if yours affects people, then the people you're affecting, their radiance is going to affect people, and something can happen. Yay, revolution. You know, violent revolutions gave revolution a bad name. Darwin was a revolution. Walt Whitman was a revolution in poetry. There are revolutions in music. There are amazing, astounding revolutions that never hurt anybody. They were great benefits to people. Let's go out there and get to work. Yeah, baby, yeah. And if you're feeling worn down, if you're feeling like you don't know if you can do it, write me. I will be peppy. I'll join your team. It's my job. Somebody else? Yo. Let's do Yo because she's had a Yo for a while, and then you. And you all can realize it. I know we've gone over, so you have to tell me, get out of here. Okay, so we'll at least do these two people. Okay, good. Yes.
En español.
Oh, no problem. I español.
Yo soy mamá de un niño especial y escucho todo esto muy bonito. La verdad es que la práctica no es la misma. Las que somos mamás de niños especiales y tenemos que estar viniendo al hospital 2 veces, 3 veces, a veces a la semana, es triste ver que en la práctica a veces ni siquiera se refieren al niño porque tiene un retraso o X. Y entonces se dirigen a mí como adulto y me dicen cosas como, ¿el niño puede cooperar o no puede cooperar? Si me respuestas, entonces selección, ¿no? Y el niño ya obviamente ve bata y quiere salir corriendo. ¿Qué consejo puedes darnos a nosotros como padres de familia? Porque yo he escuchado aquí muchos consejos para médicos, pero nosotros como papás vivimos el otro lado de la moneda. Entonces, no sé, tu opinión.
Well, we can hope that the medical people in the audience heard, and that you still have time in your pediatric residency to practice talking with the kids. You're right. People don't know how to talk to people that are different. They think if you don't speak their language, you can't speak to them. And I can tell you, you can speak a huge amount not even knowing the language. To learn to speak with somebody like Kathy, who doesn't, because of her cerebral palsy, she doesn't have an ability to speak. So you're right. By standing up here and having the courage, and I'm sure all the pediatric residents in this room heard you, and let's hope one of them responds. One of them will remember that however unusual or different your child is, that there's magic in there. And since I've been with many thousands of children like this, there is magic. When we go clowning, the places that are loved the most by new clowns are places that house many of the most profoundly different children. And they somehow, before then, they hadn't actually stopped to try to make that communication. So as a parent, speak up. Introduce them to your child. Tell them ways that they can play with your child. And speak up, friendly. Be friendly and say, I was at this talk here at the school and Pat said for me to speak up, so would you please talk to my child? and that you could create theater pieces. You could talk to the pediatric staff here and see if there was a mixer kind of thing where people had because if you only have 7 minutes, it's hard. So maybe creating opportunities where you can spend. We go to a place in Russia where all the children are deaf, dumb, and blind. They also are exhibiting what psychiatrists would call autism, or some kind of repetitive, energetic behavior. And when you first go in the room, you can see a dozen children that have no communication with anybody, it looks like. And I try to give them an idea how they can go through the maze of trying to find a way to make that communication. You've had to do it. And maybe you can get a group of moms with a group of kids and see if contact the residency program here and see if there could be a fun picnic where people could journey in that world. Because, to change things, you feel the hurt, and I'm sure everybody felt her hurt in here. It hurts. Because a mother, their child isn't a disease to the mother. They're their child. And so you took a lot of bravery, I think, to say what you said. And then you think, okay, how can that bridge be made? And maybe a pediatric resident here will say, I'm going to make it my life work. You understand me? And that you never give up, you mention it, you make some probes, and then you try again, and then with the hospital we're building, it took me 16 years to get the first donation. I thought it was going to be built by the end of 4 years. I was sure, with my determination, I was going to have our hospital in 4 years. In the 40th year, I started building. Crazy, right? Loco Joe, right? You know Don Quixote, right? Who's read Don Quixote? All the way through. Oh, that's a lot of people. Not just the first half. And I love there's something about a quest. Get on some quests and make it your dream to integrate with pediatric practice. Because one thing I found with profoundly different children is that there's a journey you can go on them that you cannot go with a normal child, and that you can't invent. It unfolds, and a lot of times it unfolds through their guidance. And you find that words like retarded don't have any meaning. You find that words like disabled don't even have any meaning. You find that they are a person, and then what do you do? Yes. And is that it? This guy's the last one. Remember, you can write me. Oh, she's saying she is the last one. Look how easy you change. And if you want a third one, he probably will change his mind for that. Okay. 2 absolutely, or I'm shot. All right.
Thank you. It was great having you today. You know, most people, we all have this performance anxiety, as you noticed, and but you're clearly well beyond that. I know many confident, well-informed, hard-working people who does a fine job, who do their best, and yet they don't go out there and try to change the world, start a movement, change the practice of medicine, and be as determined and as revolutionary as you've been, as to inspire other people and lead a world movement.
Talk into the microphone, 'cause
Yeah. Sorry.
you drift off.
Sorry, yes. So I was wondering, you had a fairly normal life before, and you had this life crisis. You were depressive and recruited. So was there a break point? Do you recall a moment of epiphany? I seem to recall Robin Williams doing this bazooka thing with the mental patient, and then the patch thing with this guy. But do you recall?
I get your question.
Or what does it take to be revolutionary, exceptional, selfless person as you've been?
You know, I appreciate, I want to be a little bit of a curveball here. I understand the world could say I'm a selfless person, but I could say I'm a totally selfish person. I do exactly what I want to do all the time. It's been decades since I did something I didn't want to do. I am a giver, and I give my life to things all the time. It is my life. But it's a very selfish life. You know, I want these things and I'm going to do them. So I think it's one way to prevent there to be revolutionaries by making people special. Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Che, Jesus Christ, many people in history that they hold up as special. And the truth is, we're not special. We're hard workers. If you actually look at the lives of them, there are a lot of things that are horrible about them as a person. And that my life was, my father was away fighting wars because America's always at war with somebody. And mother was at home doing the work. My father didn't know me. He knew war. He was out there doing men things, where the person working was my mother. And she was a school teacher, and she made me the person you like. The crisis I had was that my mother was not a political person. She was a sweet woman. And so when my father died, and I had to face war in a very personal level, and then I had to come back in the country and face that this land of the free did not let black people drink at a drinking fountain or go to the bathroom on a white person's toilet. My mother didn't prepare me for that. She prepared me to have an allergic reaction. I mean, my mother says you're never rude. My mother says you are always fair. And so when I saw unfairness and rudeness, I had an allergic reaction. My mother was not a political person, and so I didn't know that you make rebellion. What she did give me was, as soon as I decided to make rebellion, I knew I could do it. I didn't have to develop it all. She made me a person who had self-esteem. I'm very glad. A lot of people have a heart attack or a cancer diagnosis and they change their life. I'm really glad I had my problem when I was 18, because in the third hospitalization, for whatever reason, it suddenly hit me that I wasn't a messed up teenager. I wasn't wanting to kill myself. I wanted a different world, and I thought revolution was out there, that it wasn't me. And then I said, I'm going to do it, and then, that was my life. Everything's been easy since then. If Mother hadn't given me self-esteem and I wanted to make rebellion, but I didn't think I could do it because I'm just one person, I don't know that experience, but I know that we work with a lot of people like that and that they can change. But it's a cop-out to think that somebody is special. Nobody in history really is any more special than somebody else. They did who they did, and anyone can take their place. You just decide, I'm going to be this if nobody is that. And you get the privilege, unless somebody has talked to you about the next person, okay, this is it. I'm disappearing.
Voy a hablar en español. Muchas gracias, buenas noches, me ha gustado mucho todo. Soy profesora, pintora, tengo mis alumnos, les enseño a pintar y técnicas. De los puntos que dijiste, creo que intento todos, pero hay uno que me falla, que es cómo no vivir con preocupación cada que me asomo al mundo y veo lo que está pasando. Creo que en el segundo punto señalaste que hay que vivir sin preocupación. ¿Qué hago para que no me falle ese?
Well, I want you to be concerned. Well, what's hollow is to say, I really wish there wasn't war, and then to do nothing. The only reason to have concern is to have it be one of the hands behind you pushing. Because if you know the information, you know you need to work for something, and you're not, it's going to hurt you. So it's either better to have no concern and just live for yourself, or have concern and then devote yourself to doing the work that makes you happy. And to not go, you're not doing enough, you're not doing enough, that's garbage. You love that you are concerned, you love that you're doing something, and you constantly expand where you see that you can expand. And enlist other people. And make a painting that makes people want to do revolution. And these sorts of things. No, I want you concerned. I want you to act on it. What we have in the United States is a huge amount of people saying, I'm really concerned about the hungry. Okay, how would I know if you're not doing anything? How would I know that you're concerned if you're saying, I'm really concerned? And so we have a school called the School for Designing a Society. We teach revolution. And it was started by my partner, Susan, many years ago. And so we joined the school in Gesundheit about 20 years ago. So we want to teach you to have concern and to get really good at revolution. Yay, revolution! There's lots of good songs. time again to rise up, and to rise up with love and not with violence. I want to thank my hosts who have taken superb care of me. Give them a big hand. Hey. Right.